Good evening and welcome to the January meeting of CPARB Bennington Community Policing Advisory Review Board. It is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 at 6:02 p.m. My name is Kelly Carroll. I chair the board, and I am going to ask my fellow board members to introduce them, starting down here.
I am Scott Richmond.
Jeff Vickers.
Kate Cost.
Scott Frost.
Vicki Lamprin.
We also have Jean Connor, who is our select board liaison, and Cat TV with us tonight, so thank you. Before we get started, I do have a brief, a small agenda change, so if I could just get a motion to discuss that.
So moved.
Second the motion.
I'm sorry, motion to discuss that.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it's just a slight agenda change, and it's under the BPD update. The first item should say BPD complement and complaint review. So I just want to make that agenda item change, and then I apologize. I don't have the vision statement out. I don't have a couple. Scott, would you please read the vision statement? And I apologize for not having that out ahead of time.
Bennington is a welcoming, engaging, inclusive, and resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, for purposes of discussion, can I get a motion to approve the amended consent of agenda with the amended agenda? Can I get a motion to discuss?
I move to discuss the consent agenda, the change.
The minutes, yeah, the change.
Second.
Okay. So the prior meeting minutes were distributed earlier, so are there any changes or modifications to the agenda or to the minutes?
I just have one question on 89, where we discussed language, and the language that the select board wanted us to use, and we decided we didn't like that language.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just review what that language was?
Kate, do you want to?
Or do you want to wait and do that when we...
Well, if you have a question on the minutes, we'll look at it now.
I just have to find it, so.
Okay. All right. While we're waiting for that, were there any other changes?
Yeah, a spelling correction on line 85. The proper spelling, Ms. Matz, would be Ms. M-A-T-T-S.
Okay. Thank you. We apologize for that misspelling.
And we have, just as an FYI, we have had 6 versions of this, and so I just have to go through, because I'm not sure which version of that language was in, so I apologize for my shuffling of papers.
Is this would we still accept the minutes as written, and then we can discuss this separately?
Yes.
So should we just vote on the...
That would be
I'll make a
Okay.
motion.
All right, so can we accept the minutes as written? Does that answer
As
your
corrected.
question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I second his motion.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. All right. So next up on the agenda, we have public comment. Is there anybody here? No one signed up, but is there anybody here who would like to speak at public comment? No. Okay. All right, so next, we are going to go on to our agenda, and that would be the BPD update with Chief Doucette. And Chief, while you're coming up to the podium, I would like to read a compliment that we received on January 1st. Dear Chief Doucette, on behalf of my family, I would like to thank 3 of your officers for helping us out in a time of need. I have a sister who has a mental illness issues. She had not responded to me or her son for a couple of days. When we went to her house Wednesday, she did not respond and would not answer the door. However, we finally decided to call 911 as she has tried suicide in the past. One of your officers promptly responded. I am embarrassed to admit I have forgotten his name. I believe it was a common name like Jones, Ryan. Anyway, when he knocked, she responded. She still would not open the door. The police officer explained that she was answering coherently and there was nothing he could do. He then outlined a plan for us. The next day would make a week. Try calling again, and he would have a supervisor come and then see what we could do. He told her through the door what could happen if she did not open the door the next day. The next day, she willingly came to my house where we were going to have dinner with our father, her son, and my girlfriend. As soon as she got to the house, she nearly passed out and was biting her tongue, could not pronounce words. We immediately assumed it was some type of overdose. We called 911 EMTs. They arrived, but my sister was combative, which she can be. We then called the police. Police Officer Rakana showed up and saw the situation at hand. He tried very hard to calm her down. He told me he did not have the authority to force her, but his supervisor did. This is exactly what the police officer the night before had said. So Officer Rakana called Corporal Faden. Faden and Rakana at this point did a wonderful job of convincing her to let EMTs go to work. The EMTs decided that she did need to be hospitalized as they thought she was overdosing on prescription medications. She also had high blood pressure and an extremely elevated heart rate. When they wanted to take her to the hospital, she again became combative, but again, the two officers again did a wonderful job to convince her to willingly rather than forcibly. My sister can be a handful. It turned out that she had not only had she mismanaged and overdosed her meds, but she had pneumonia and was in the hospital until this morning. I have just recently moved from Arizona to Vermont, and I was thrilled at the professionalism of your officers in the handling of this situation. If you could tell the officers thank you from my whole family and my girlfriend, we really appreciate their efforts. So, thank you. I'm gonna pass it to Pete.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. A little bit cold out today. I know the fire department has been busy today. My officers have been busy, and I don't normally come in at the last minute, so I apologize for coming in just before the meeting started. Tonight, I'd like to go over a complaint that was received at the Bennington Police Department involving a member of our patrol division. The member of the patrol division conducted a traffic stop based on an external complaint, which means a complaint that was phoned in by someone as well as an observation that that officer had observed. During the traffic stop, the officer did observe some indications that the operator of the vehicle may be under the influence. Further investigation revealed that the operator of the vehicle was under the influence based on training and experience. Based on that, the operator of the vehicle was transported to the Bennington Police Department and processed using a standard processing form. During the processing, the individual agreed to go up to the hospital and have blood drawn. That process is very clear. The person is transported to the medical center. They go to the desk. They get registered, and then they go to the lab where the blood is drawn under consent. With that being said, the person did go to the desk. They were transported back to the lab by walking, and then after the blood process, the blood draw process was complete, back to the Bennington Police Department. Following the processing of the person ended up filing a complaint against the officer for a false detention, as well as taking the person's property. So during the investigation, it was learned that the officer did not parade the person through the hospital. The person was actually unrestrained when they went to the hospital, went to the desk, did the paperwork, had the blood drawn, went back to the office. There was no false detention there. The person was not paraded through the hospital, as the complainant said. The other piece of it is with the property loss, the person was offended because their vehicle was removed from the public highway and was towed. The reason for that is one, we can't leave a vehicle on the side of the public highway where this traffic stop took place, and the registration on the vehicle was suspended, which meant that the vehicle could not be on a public highway. So for that reason, the vehicle was removed. Efforts to talk to this individual and get them to understand the process of the DUI processing failed, and based on that complaint, we did conduct an internal review of the incident, and we found that the traffic stop was a legitimate traffic stop, one, based on a complaint, and two, based on the observation of the officer. The vehicle was towed as a result of the registration being suspended, and as a result of it just could not be left unattended where it was, and at the same time, again, for the third time, the person was not paraded through the hospital. No one drew attention to this person. And good evening. And so based on the review of the traffic stop, based on review of the entire incident, the officer acted appropriately during the traffic stop throughout the process, and the officer was exonerated from this complaint with no wrongdoing. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so before we open this up for discussion from the board, are there any board members that need to recuse themselves from this? No. Okay. Are there any questions from the board?
I just had one question. Was the person over the limit for alcohol intoxication?
It was not alcohol intoxication that we were concerned with.
Oh.
It was it was operating under the influence of drugs.
Of drugs, okay. And was that positive on the blood test?
Part of the internal affairs investigation did not take that part into consideration because that wasn't the nexus of the complaint against the officer, but the person was found to be operating under the influence through a blood test.
Any other, Scott, Jeff, Kate?
It seems really straightforward in terms of the write-up that you have about the complainant and the actions of the officer. It seems very straightforward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any comments from anyone out in the public? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the complaint resolution?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the Bennington Police Internal Affairs Investigation IA 00524, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, we have New Experience Camp.
Yes, let's talk about that. So, New Experience Camp 2025, the dates have been established for that. For Phase 1, New Experience Camp starts July 7th, 2025, which is a Monday. Phase 2 of New Experience Camp starts on Sunday, July 6th, 2025. And it is promised that this year will be even better than last year, which will be hard to beat. With that being said, we got it out really early this year. We announced it in January because we want people to be prepared. So we put it up on Facebook and we let people know that New Experience Camp was coming. There were a couple negative comments up on social media, mostly all positive, but there were a couple negative comments. I just wanted to address that really quickly. We did have to raise the price of camp this year a little bit. Last year, we suffered a loss with New Experience Camp, and we could not suffer another loss this year. Donations for New Experience Camp were down in 2024, and we have not sent letters this year yet to ask people for donations. People are asked to do a lot, I think, in this community, and we appreciate all the support that we get on the police department side. But at the same time, our thought process with putting the dates out, announcing the week that it was going to be, and letting people know was that people would be able to set a little bit of money aside every week if they want their kids to go to camp. As you all know, we take 30 kids generally, 10 in phase 2, 20 in phase 1, and we are prepared. We already have great plans this year for New Experience Camp, and we're excited about it. Not that you can tell from me, but we're excited about it, and we think that this year is going to be successful. And we just ask that people be a little bit patient with us and understand that the cost of putting this camp on has gone up over the last couple of years, and we do rely on donations. And because we didn't get all of those donations last year, we had to raise the price of camp. It wasn't that much, but again, if people just set a little bit of money aside each week, applications will come out the 3rd week of April, and so we've got a couple of months ahead of us where we can save the funds to make that happen. So we're super excited about New Experience Camp, and I'm happy to answer anybody's questions about New Experience Camp or take anyone's suggestions about things that they'd like to see happen in New Experience Camp.
What kind of things do you typically do?
We do a wide variety of things at New Experience Camp. Phase 2 is set up for some activities with older kids. We're going to start New Experience Camp this year with traveling to northern Maine, where we're going to take the Phase 2 kids in some class 4 and 5 whitewater rapids, and on a high water dam release date. And it's something that we did last year, and the kids had an amazing time. And so that's how we're going to start the week with Phase 2. We'll bring them back. We're going to end up doing some community service projects. We're going to end up working with our partners at Hale Mountain Fish and Game Club, and we're going to do firearm safety. And this year we're considering adding archery to our program, and we have a day planned at Somerset Reservoir where we teach the kids a little bit about fishing, and usually the kids will outfish the adults, which is perfect. And those are just some of the things we're doing in Phase 1. We may do some caving as well. The kids seem to really enjoy that. The Phase 1 kids are going to be doing some of the same type of things, but just on a lesser scale. They won't go whitewater rafting until Friday in Phase 1, and they'll land down in Charlemont, Mass, where they'll be rafting down there on the Deerfield River. They also get to spend time at Hale Mountain Fish and Game Club. They also have some community projects that they have to do. We're still working out some details about Adirondack Extreme or another location. So, and we also we're really hoping that we'll teach them some more things over at Southwest Tech, where we bring the kids and let them see what the Southwest Tech program is all about, and see what their carpentry skills are like, and things like that. There's a whole host of things that we do over at Southwest Tech. They're a huge partner for us, and we love bringing the kids over there. So that's just a few highlights of some of the things that we're doing. And of course, we feed your kids every day, and we make sure that they come home safely. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
About how many kids do you usually take or have in your program? And sort of a follow-up to that would be, is there, because of the increased expense, is it ever possible to do maybe some fundraising or scholarship for kids who may not be able, parents may not be able to afford the increase?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll start with question number one. Question number one, we generally take about 30 kids. Sometimes we go a little bit beyond that, but we have to be careful because of transportation and things like that.
Yeah.
And so as far as scholarships go, once in a while, we do have someone in the community that will step up and write a check and say, we'd like to sponsor 2 kids. There's no guarantee on that. That's why we're asking people to try to save their money. And if people need a little bit of assistance, then they'll have to write a letter asking for that. And we'll see what comes in. Every once in a while, that does happen, and we can help out. So hence when we receive some really good donations, it just keeps the cost down for everybody. We try to spread that out so it's fair and consistent. But every once in a while, we do get somebody that says, I want to sponsor 1 or 2 of those kids, and sometimes we can make that happen, but there's no promises on that.
How much is it?
It's right around $400.
Okay. Just a sense of.
Yeah, just to, between, on average between the two. So, especially when you stop and think, taking the kids on the overnight to Maine and things like that, it's expensive, but we've been down. It's the same people that we're rafting with. I'm not here for an infomercial, but it's the same people at Crabapple. They have a facility in Maine. They have a facility down in Charlemont, Mass. And it was actually their recommendation last year that we try their facility in Maine, and we just had an amazing time there. And the kids were so happy. They're in the pool. They're playing volleyball. We took them on a long hike to tire them out, and so they would go to sleep. And it was just really a great time, and it was a much different experience in Maine than it was down in Mass. The river's wider, it's faster, and things like that. So, and a lot of the kids that are in Phase 2 have come up through Phase 1, so they're looking for something a little bit different. It's just like when we do our firearm safety program. It's just a different program for the Phase 2 kids than it is the Phase 1 kids. So, yeah, you're welcome, Ms. Connor.
Okay. Let's see. Have you ever had times where you had to turn kids away because you had too many applicants?
Yes.
Oh, that's got to be hard.
No, it's very difficult to do that. But the problem is, again, we're trying to manage space on some of the vehicles that we're using for transportation and things like that. And it's, span of control is important, because at times when you go to Bromley, if people say, wow, look at all those kids in bright orange shirts. Yeah, that's so we can monitor them and see where they're at, right? So it's just really about span of control and making sure that we're keeping the kids safe and we're keeping good tabs on them and stuff. So it's not because we don't want more. Listen, if we could take 75 kids, it would be fantastic, but we just, that would be a little much for me.
After last summer, safety first.
Safety first.
Yeah. I'm curious about the ages of the kids and male to female, and who staffs this camp? The police officers are really, really busy, so I'm wondering who.
Yeah, so, we really put our people to work the week of New Experience Camp, because the officers that you see at New Experience Camp and my staff, it's not just officers, my staff that you see at New Experience Camp, to include our civilian communications staff, they are at camp and then they're at work, or they're at work and then they're at camp. And, it makes for a really long day. And I'm not going to lie, we have such a great time, but when Friday rolls around, you hope that your wife has mowed the lawn when you get home, so you don't have to do that on Saturday, right? So just saying, I hope my wife's watching, hopefully, right? So with that being said, ages for camp, in Phase 1, it's 11 to 13, and then in Phase 2, we have actually stepped it up, and we're taking kids that are 14, 15. Last year, we took a couple of kids that were 16 because they were so close, and so it's broken up into appropriate age groups, and that's how we do that.
I keep saying you need to do an adult session because I want to do it.
Yeah, well, at one point, the select board also thought that we should do this 2 separate weeks so we could get more kids in. And to be honest with you, I'm just not sure how we would really fit that in, because for that particular week, it's like working 2 full-time jobs, but we do enjoy it. We've been doing it for a long time, and it's something that I want to see continue, after I depart. So I'm hoping that we continue to be successful.
After you said there were some complaints about it, this is not a moneymaker for the police department. You're not making any money on this, correct? Those fees go to cover all of the activities. It's not like the police department's making money on this.
We're definitely not a business, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And we're not making any money. In fact, a lot of the people that participate in this camp are, if it's not them, it's their spouses who are home baking for the next day or what have you. So there's no money to be made here.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I appreciate it. But there's definitely no money to be made here.
Yeah.
And, the kids get their backpacks, they get their T-shirts, they get their sweatshirt, they get their water bottles. And all of this, costs money. We used to have some vendors that would donate.
Yeah.
But it's hard right now. And listen, I'm not a political guy, I don't want to be, but economics is something that we have to think about here, right? So, but that's a great question. No, the police department does not make any money. There's no revenue here.
Yeah, so if I can understand if people don't like the cost, maybe that they don't like it, but it's not through anything other than you trying to find the activities that the kids like the best. And both of my kids have been through it and loved it. And I don't think if you had the same activities, it wouldn't be as interesting or exciting for the kids. So it's kind of
there are some things that we could do. At one point, years and years ago, it was simple. We would get the Vermont Army Guard to come down with a helicopter. We would land it right here in the fire department parking lot. That's become a lot tougher. We haven't done that in years. Albany Med Life Flight used to come over and land a helicopter here. But think about it. They're flying a helicopter from Albany to here. Yes, I understand it's 16 minutes or whatever, but that's burning a lot of fuel to come here. And but that is on the list for this year. We want to try to bring that back. And so there's a lot of things that we've had in the past that we've kind of let go because of cost. And so this year we're going to try to bring some of the smaller things back. And it's not like the kids aren't busy, because they arrive here, they get their snacks, they sit down, they have a little breakfast, we feed them lunch, and some nights we're having ice cream socials and maybe shooting whipped cream at each other, I don't know. And so things like that. So we do have a lot of fun with these kids, and they get to see that the police are human, and we have a lot of fun.
Cool. My son loved the camp, by the way. I was just curious, do you see any of the students eventually go to academy and want to become police officers?
That's a great question. We actually have had people move on and become law enforcement officers and nurses, and again, I know I'll forget some of the people that help us out, but like the hospital comes down with some nurses, we do a little bit of first aid stuff, and we give kids experiences that they don't normally have in a day-to-day routine at a regular school, but we don't want to call it school because then they think, oh my gosh. But yes, we have seen kids be very successful after completing New Experience Camp and go on and become involved in public service. So yes.
Any questions from? Yep, if you can just, I just need you to come up and identify.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Sarah Beth Ward, Bennington. How many years have you been doing this?
So we have been doing New Experience Camp now for well over 20 years. And we actually last year, for the first time on the kids' shirts, we put the year that we incorporated, we didn't incorporate anything, that we started camp. And right now, I'm sorry that I don't know the exact, but I know it's over 20 years. It's been a long time, and we've just been that successful. I mean, we haven't missed a year. Even, we fought through some COVID restrictions and things like that, and the kids were having to wear masks and all this stuff, but we made things happen. So, yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you have a fixed set of goals for the program, and then at each year do you reevaluate and adjust things of what the outcome is, the impact of the program?
Yeah, actually we do.
I'm sorry, Tortoise, can you just identify yourself and your name for the record? Sorry, thank you.
Oh, Tortoise Isselhart, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tortoise. Yes, so we actually do. Each year, we take a look at team building, skill building, basically life experiences that these kids may experience when, especially like when we have the mannequins out and we're teaching them how to use an AED and we're doing the CPR piece and things like that. And then what I want to share with you, because I'm kind of excited that you asked that, what I want to share with you is at the end of the week, we actually have the kids go around the room and not just tell us what their favorite part was, but give us a couple things that they learned at the camp. And so that's important to us. And then, we have a lot of meetings up to the camp, and then we have several meetings following the camp so that we can build on that for the next year. That's why we make the changes that we make. So it's good. Thanks for asking.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Next up, we have de-escalation training.
Yes, thanks for allowing me to talk about this very briefly. De-escalation training is important to us. It's part of our use of force tactics and training and things of that nature. And most recently, we've been afforded an opportunity to have 4 officers attend Roger Williams University for a week. So these 4 officers, 1 from each shift, patrol officers will actually be attending at Roger Williams University, and they'll be receiving de-escalation instructor training. They'll be able to work with members of their shift as well as the other staff in teaching de-escalation techniques, what's effective, what's not, and we're very excited to have this opportunity. And I will share with you, we're not excited because there's a grant paying for it. We're excited because I think that it goes along with what we're striving to accomplish, and that is less use of force, which we've been successful with, and especially with the issues surrounding mental health issues and things like that. And this is going to better train our staff once these people obtain their instructor status, better train our staff in de-escalation when dealing with people that are in sudden onset of mental health, or there's other issues going on in their lives. It also will help us responding to domestic disputes and things like that. So the syllabus looked fantastic. We were excited to be able to get 4 of our officers in there. So in the future, I would like to, once the training is complete, maybe we could have those 4 officers visit this meeting and talk about some of the things that they've learned and what their plans are to pursue that within the department. So, maybe late spring or something, we can have them come here. So, again, we think that's an important piece of what we try to do here in Bennington to keep the community safe and keep our officers safe as well.
Any questions, comments on? No? Anyone?
Tortoise Isselhart again. I came with an issue in my mind that I was hoping that the members of the board and you could give some comments about. I think I've been kind of surprised, and it's interesting that there was the compliment and the complaint that came up on the agenda. But I just have wondered, there are so few complaints actually filed. And I'm just wondering what you guys have heard in your listening sessions and what you hear out on the street, that somehow would jibe with the number of complaints. And if it's exactly the same balance, that's fine, but maybe it's different. So I don't know which of you want to start.
Well, I'll start and then I'll let Kate, because we've done a lot of the listening sessions. And I will say, the majority of the information we get is positive. There's a lot of support for the Bennington Police Department within the community, and we hear that regularly. Now, that being said, there have been a couple of things that have come up from some of the young people and some perception things, but I would say for the most part, it's been fairly positive, and yeah.
I mean, some of the things that we've been told, sometimes they will, an individual in a listening session will talk about something in the past, and then we'll ask them like how long ago that was, just so we get a sense of history and context. And very often it's prior to the start of this community policing initiative. And so then we'll ask a sort of a follow-up, like, well, have you had recent? And how do you think we could change, things can change? And they'll mention, obviously not right now because it's so amazingly cold outside, but they'll talk about, seeing an officer on the sidewalk like on School Street or downtown on Main Street. And I mean, they patrolled my neighborhood on Silver Street in Imperial. I don't know about other neighborhoods, and that's been real positive. They've talked about how officers have, and this is my word, use discretion in terms when there's a stop to ask what the issue is and what's been going, why whatever happened. Were they on their phone? Did they drive through a stop sign? Whatever may have been. And so what the circuit, or why haven't they renewed their registration? A myriad of things. And then talked about how the officers will very often, if the individual is driving the car is under stress, like they need to pick up their kid from their child care center, that they're given a warning instead of a citation, that the officer was really respectful of their situation. So they'll talk about those kinds of things. And so that seems to, I'm going to call it a cultural issue, that seems to be changing somewhat. The more officers get training in things like de-escalation, but also implicit bias and other kinds of things. Kelly mentioned we had a listening session with the kids at the Center for Restorative Justice. They have a drop-in center for kids. And so we went to one of their meetings, and the kids talked about how they really don't have much contact with officers, but they kind of pull, well, it's kind of like I'm a teenager and I'm not supposed to like police, kind of thing. And then we'll talk about, do they ever have any direct experience? Well, no, they haven't, but, they really don't like the police, but they don't know why they don't like the police.
But they wanted the police to stop in at the high school more often, and with the copsicle truck, and give away some little giveaways, and so they're interested in developing a relationship and building that trust. So, and we've heard things about, the police are in my neighborhood, and we'd like them to slow down and wave and talk a little bit more. And brought that back, and it's all about building that relationship and getting that communication going. So, I can't tell you if the number of complaints is relative or it's not, but I can tell you the low number of complaints that come through once they're formally filed is consistent with the low complaint comments we hear out in the community. I hear a lot of support for the police department.
Mm-hmm. I think Tortoise, I would like to, if you don't mind, Kelly, I think one of the things that I'd like to address is sometimes you hear other types of complaints about the police. Oh, they're not doing their job. People speed through my neighborhood every day. And that's a different kind of complaint. And we took that very seriously because we were hearing that a lot in 2023, that the officers weren't doing enough traffic enforcement in neighborhoods and stuff. And I just completed the annual report on Sunday and submitted that to the town. And I think that you'll all be impressed. We got after our people and said there needs to be more traffic enforcement in different neighborhoods and things like that. And our stat says for 2024, as compared to 2023, you're going to find are far different because we did step that up a little bit. Back years ago, when we were criticized for too many traffic stops, we slowed things down a little bit. And I've talked about this openly in public meetings before. And we don't stop cars to generate revenue for the town. That's a thing of the past. And but we stop cars because people are speeding, or their registration's no good, or their car's not inspected. When I say no good, I mean expired, or there's some other type of traffic violation. And, I give my people that discretion. You can either issue the Vermont civil violation complaint, or you can issue the warning. It depends on a lot of different variants. So that is a complaint that we were hearing. We've had people here at the Community Policing Advisory Review Board meetings complain that the police aren't doing enough traffic enforcement. So we were able to kind of ramp that up a little bit this year. So when you see the police department town report, please take a look at that, and you're going to see some big numbers in there. I mean, we arrested over 1,000 people last year. The Bennington Police Department is a very busy agency, and I'm not criticizing any of the other municipalities or any other law enforcement agencies, but by far we are the busiest in the southwest part of the state, and it's tough for my people for a variety of different reasons, but I want to tell you that we do go out and we do the best that we can with the resources that we have. So hopefully those complaints about traffic enforcement not getting completed or not being conducted will work their way back a little bit, because the numbers clearly show that we are trying to fit that into our already busy schedules. People don't see the fact, they think that the police just do one thing. We assist the fire department, we assist the rescue squad, we drive an ambulance, we help the fire department at fire scenes. There's a lot that we do. We're not just involved in law enforcement, we're helping United Counseling Service on a regular basis, we're responding to mental health calls, and we're de-escalating. I'm going to tell you, years ago, you went to somebody's house and they were having a bad moment or whatever, and they took a swing at the police. They got arrested. We didn't have patience for that. You just got through it and you were done, and they had to go to court. I'm not encouraging you to punch an officer, but what I'm trying to tell you is we've really changed the way we go with those types of complaints, and it's for the better. It's for the better because we firmly believe that if people can get help versus having to get involved in the criminal justice system, we're in a better place. And so we have made lots of changes over the years, and but as far as the initial question, in my opinion, we are not perfect. I've said it before, and on occasion, officers do make mistakes, and we account for that. That's why we have this process. We did have a total of 5 complaints in 2024. IA 00524, which we went over tonight, was the final complaint from 2024. So you're right. We don't see a lot of personnel complaints. On occasion, you might get a complaint from someone that the officer didn't do their job, and sometimes you can bring that person in, not to avoid a complaint, but explain what the law is in Vermont, because the law in Vermont, we're a border state. The law in New York is completely different than what it is in Vermont, and sometimes people get confused by that. And so sometimes you bring people in, you show them the law, you show them the employee tenant handbooks that we have, and you're able to explain things to people, and then they understand. That's what we try to do. We try to educate people versus, just saying, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how we do things. And we're very proud of that. And keeping in mind that we had almost 14,000 complaints last year in the little town of Bennington. And
Calls. Calls, not complaints.
Sorry, not complaints, not complaints. I mean, like, yes, incidents. Let's call them incidents, not complaints. Yeah, whew, oh boy, I wouldn't be the chief if we had 14,000 complaints, I'll tell you that. So I hope that answers your question. And yeah, that's.
Okay. Okay, 1 second. Oh, 1 second. Okay.
No, I was going to say,
Okay.
another question.
Okay, all right. I'm going to come back to Tortoise if I can just go to the lady. Okay.
Okay, Tortoise again. That's fascinating about New York State and Vermont, and I wondered if you could cite a few examples of the extreme, where the extreme differences are between New York and Vermont.
Well, I can tell you this, I can make a list for the next meeting, but one of the things that comes up is all the time is harassment. And, you know, they have different degrees. Like if you watch the news or you look at the laws in New York, they have different types of degrees of complaints. And in New York, you get arrested, you're right in front of the town or village judge, and you know, the judge comes out from their house at night, and you have an arraignment, and none of that happens in Vermont. You know, everybody goes to court during the day here in Vermont. We don't have the varying degrees, for example, as they do over in New York, and one of the biggest things is harassment that comes right off the top of my head is, you know, people will get upset and they'll say, well, you know, I was down at Walmart and somebody came up to me and started swearing at me because of the way I parked my vehicle, and that's harassment. Well, we understand that part, and the most we're going to do for that, unless the person really became disorderly, is we will try to find that person and speak to them. Whereas in New York, harassment's a criminal offense. So little things like that, where people have to understand the difference. And there's different types of degrees of assault. Here we have simple assault, we have aggravated assault. Over in New York, they have different degrees of assault. And you know, it's just a completely different world. Massachusetts is different than Vermont. Connecticut's different than Massachusetts. And you know, and people that move to Vermont have to understand that there's different variants, and there's different things that have to be met to meet the criminal elements of a crime. And yeah, so I mean, it's not anything major, but there are times that things are just different, and sometimes you have to take the time to explain it.
Take time to explain to your officers too, if they're coming from another system. Right. Right. Besides to the individuals that might escalate their activity where it wasn't going to count too much, but would be more careful about it if it was going to give them more points or the equivalent on their record. Very interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Leslie Addison, North Bennington. And thanks, I'm really excited that I came because I have a question that's more out of curiosity, not for lack of trust. I know of your work with UCS because of my own work history there, and I very much support what you do. The Roger Williams University training, cool. So I'm just kind of curious what you were looking for in the de-escalation curriculum, what led you to pick that one? And then if it's like a train-the-trainer model, how do you logistically filter down all this training to the people who didn't go, with all the shifts and officers and that kind of thing? How do you train everybody to do it?
So that's a great question. And the simple fact, we selected this. It was a highly recommended program, and when Lieutenant Grandy and I each got the notification from Roger Williams that the program was going to be right down at their facility. Yes, it's a 3.5-hour drive, but you know, we do attend training at Roger Williams University, and they This particular training, as I already said, is at no cost to the town, or maybe I didn't say that, but this particular training is at no cost to the town. But as a member of the New England Chiefs Association, we do get some discounted rates for officers to attend training at Roger Williams. So we're on that email list, and when this popped up, we looked at the curriculum, and we said, wow, this is going to be fantastic. So what's the best way to get this training to all of our people? And it was to select 4 people, 1 from each shift, and it's part of the development process for the future of the department as well, right? So we looked at people that we thought would be interested. We brought them in, we talked to them, they're interested, and it starts their whole development process at the police department, because now they're going to attend this training, they're going to come back, they're going to share the information with the officers on their shift, right? They're going to have instructor level status. We're going to be able to assist the police academy, which is very important to me, because the police academy instruction is generally done by officers from municipal and state departments throughout the entire state. There's no extra pay for that, right? So, and it starts them building their career as an instructor, and it's the future of the department. So they become an instructor in this. Perhaps 3 years from now they want to go off and be a defensive tactics instructor, which we like to maintain our own instructors in that. So it really is about professional development and growth. So there's a lot more to this than just the training itself at Roger Williams. It really is about the future of the department and making sure that we're prepared for the future. You're welcome.
Jean?
I have kind of a two-part question. So I know you don't have data in front of you, but anecdotally, do you feel the number of complaints has decreased since you've implemented community policing practices? And is it possible, if that's true, that the complaints have decreased to the level that they are now, which is very few? Do you think there's any correlation to that? Or in addition to that, the changes that you've made within the department with the shift changes and, access to counseling sessions for the officers, if that has affected in a positive way the low number of complaints?
So I think there's more than 2 questions there, but I think
sorry.
No, that's okay. Let me just speak from the heart for a minute. I firmly believe that the Bennington Police Department has been involved in community policing for a long time. We've been going to the schools. In fact, I'm going to Sacred Heart School on Monday to read my favorite book, Officer Buckle and Gloria, to some children there. It's Catholic Schools Week, and we were invited to go, and I'm going to be there on Monday morning. But we've been doing things like that for a very long time. I think that with the changes in some of the policies statewide, some of the, for example, use of force, formerly called response to active resistance. There's a lot of things that have changed the police culture nationwide, not just here in Bennington, and it's for the better. Look, we're here, and it's not a little pun or to be funny. We are really here to help people, and trying to avoid an arrest. Maybe is not the right terminology, avoid, but to try to avoid the arrest and get someone help that they need really has come about in the last 4 or 5 years, instead of putting someone in the criminal justice system. And that's a methodology that I firmly believe in, and we've been doing that. As far as the complaints go against the police department, we didn't always have a lot of complaints. We needed to do, in my opinion, we needed to do a better job at explaining situations to people, which we're currently doing. We needed to be a little more timely in our response to people that called and were upset about something, and explain the situation to them, so it doesn't get to that point where they think that we are just non-responsive. We've changed a lot of things at the police department, and I know you're all going to find this hard to believe. We didn't have voicemail at the police department for the patrol officers until approximately 2 years ago. Probably goes along with our dental and vision insurance that we didn't have until a couple of years ago. But the point is that we now have other systems in place where officers get their messages timely. We were still using little pink notepads, so-and-so called, would like a return call, would like, the dispatcher checks the box. But we got to the point where people were missing messages. The pink note, wasn't making it to the mailbox, or it made it to the mailbox and it got stuffed under a pile. Every day the officers are supposed to come to work and they're supposed to check their voicemail. Okay, we issue cell phones to department members now for a lot of different reasons. When officers years ago were using their personal phones to take pictures at crime scenes and then sending emails and transferring we shouldn't be doing that. So every member now has their own cell phone. The dispatcher, communication specialist, can take that phone call for Officer Richmond and say, okay, I'm going to transfer you. So now what happens is the phone message can be transferred to the officer's cell phone if the officer is working, and if they're busy on a call, that voice message gets translated to an email, boom, and it's right there. So we have really improved our technology probably over the last 2 or 3 years, making it a lot easier and a lot better timely response from members of the Bennington Police Department. And we have the select board to thank for that. We have the town manager to thank for that. All things that we've been pushing for, and sometimes we're told, oh, maybe next year. Listen, we need to get up with the times and we need to be responsive. And I think that through all of that, over these last few years, it's just gotten a lot better. And I think people appreciate the fact that we get back to them. And sure, I don't like it when somebody calls after hours and leaves me a voicemail and then my phone's going boop, 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 at night. But if it's really important and I read it, I actually do call people back. But otherwise it waits till the morning. But technology-wise, the town has made great strides, and it's really improved the way we do business at the police department. And that's a fact.
You would mention that it's kind of a balance, trying to do everything you can with the resources you have. And I've asked this multiple times when you've talked about stuff, but how is staffing now with officers and other staff? Are you full now, or are you still missing some? Oh no, we're missing. Yeah, we're at a point right now where we're still down 5 people. We're actively. Oh, this is a sore subject. We're struggling, Jeff. I mean, It's really a struggle for me. I've been here for 35 years. I love what I do. I love the people that work for me, and I've said that 100 times. And I love this community and what it stands for. And but we're struggling with recruiting and retaining people. We're watching police departments around us, offering different things that we're just not able to offer. And that's where we struggle. I mean, when a department over the mountain gives their employees a 17% pay increase, and they're now making more money than my people, and they don't do a tenth of what my people are doing, where would you go work? And that's one of the things that we honestly struggle with. And I think it's, listen, we can have the best equipment, we can have the best administration, we can have the best select board, the best town manager. People aren't going to come here if they're not going to get what they can get someplace else. There's a department north of here if they haven't signed already, they're going to sign an amazing contract.
And we can't compete with that. You know, you have to remember that I have some very dedicated people, and I said this at the select board meeting. When we found out that the town insurance costs were going to go up as high as they were going to go, up over 20%, you know, the union from DPW, Department of Public Works, and the Police Department union got together, and they voted. And they voted to take a lesser plan, insurance plan, so that the town could meet their obligations. And, you know, that's the kind of people we have working for the town, but that can't happen forever. And we have to take this very seriously. And if we want to recruit and retain the best, then we need to take a serious look at that. Tonight's not the night. That's not on the agenda, and I don't want to get on my high horse.
I appreciate it.
But and it's not that I don't appreciate the question. It's just, it's something that the lieutenant and I struggle with.
Yeah.
You know, we get applications. We have an application right now where this person has been involved in law enforcement for a long time, and they want to now come and perhaps work in Vermont. And they started in Bennington, but then they're gonna branch out. They're gonna look, and they're gonna be like, well, I can do better somewhere else, and I'm not gonna have to do all that work because I've been doing this for a long time. And you know, it's really, really a challenge. And I don't know what the answer is right now. I think that as I said at a select board meeting, I think that the town manager and human resources and some others, we're all going to have to kind of sit down and figure things out and figure out how we're going to do this. On the flip side, you know, we're required to do more. You know, and the fact is that, you know, we have the opportunity, hopefully, if our budget passes this coming March, you know, we're going to be able to hire an analyst so that we can continue our work with Project Alliance and BenStat and the situation table, all things that if you tune in on Monday night at the select board meeting, you're going to hear about, because those are things that are necessary for us to be successful in this community so that we can help people, as I've already said, with their mental health issues, with their addictions and things like that. We work very hard with a bunch of community organizations and a bunch of community groups doing things that I never thought I'd be involved in as a law enforcement officer. Things have changed dramatically, but we still need police officers in our community to keep the community safe. And it's something that we're going to have to focus on.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And just before you leave, condolences to the law enforcement community at the loss of Border Patrol officer.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's very frustrating. That's the second law enforcement officer shot in Vermont in the last 2 months. And fortunately, the first one survived. And, you know, unfortunately, our friend from the Border Patrol did not. And it's a huge loss. It is definitely a huge loss. And again, I'm not into the political side of things. I just think that whenever we lose a firefighter or a police officer or anyone that's given their life to public service, it's a tragedy. And but I appreciate you bringing that up. You know, the morning bands are on, and our hearts go out to you know, to his family. I don't want to get into too many details with that, but you know, when you spend your life protecting others and then you lose your life while still trying to protect the great country that we live in, that's just a real tragedy. And those are things that we need to think about. This is why we you know, we offer the equipment that we offer to our officers, and as you all know from listening to me, I mean, we just upgraded body armor, and you know, not that would have made a difference with the Border Patrol agent, but you know, it's things that we need to think about. And you know, and I'm not pulling on anyone's heartstrings or what have you, but I would ask that, you know, when it comes time to go to the polls, that you support the town budget, and make sure that we have the things that we need to be a successful police department. So, thank you. I appreciate all of you.
Next up.
Next up on the agenda, we have our CPARB resolution. Kate and I went to the Select Board meeting on Monday, January 13th, and presented on the resolution adjustments we had voted on last month. They came back with a couple of other suggestions, so I'm going to turn it over to Kate to explain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before we get to that, I just wanted to address, Scott, your question before. It was actually in last month's packet, just so you have a sense of where you might find it. It was a statement, it read, it was supposed to be part of the goals. This was suggested by members of the Select Board that Kelly and I met with, and that it would be included if the charter review changes pass not only the town, but the state, and then the governor, okay? So we had decided at last meeting that we would not include that, just because that's about 1.5 to 2 years away. So did you want me to read it? Is that what you wanted me to do?
No, I remember.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So we're okay?
Yep, fine.
Okay, all right, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Sure. So the changes to the most recent resolution, and I'm going to just get you to numbers here. So let's see. So there are no changes until we get to, hang on. This is on page 2. It's line 23 and 24. So originally this had, and I need to have a caveat, a qualifier on that. This would have been the last time it was approved, so at last month's meeting. It was changed at the Select Board to all traffic stop data, period, and that's available. We had proposed that it would be traffic stop data, including town and state of residency of those stopped. We discovered that the residency information is not available to us. The state doesn't really collect that, so we're not able to do that. We had hoped that getting that information would be able to give us sort of a nuanced understanding of ethnicity with traffic stops. But we're not able to get that, so we can't burrow down into that data in that way. Okay. So that was the one change. The next was we moved the issue of the whole 2 paragraphs under considerations. We moved that to training. And because it made better sense, that was a suggestion from the audience. And we refer to it now as further considerations. And so I'll come back to that, but it's now under training on page 3. Lines 15 to 25. Okay, so we moved that to where it was most appropriate. On page 2, we have a change to the meeting, our meetings frequency. And the initial one was that CPARB will meet at least every 2 months. And for clarity's sake, we changed it to the CPARB will meet every other month, i.e. 6 times a year in person or in virtual setting. So because we felt that if we meet every other month, that the off months give us an opportunity to do listening sessions that month, and it fills it out. Otherwise, it can get to be onerous since most of the people on the board are working and they're not able to take time off to do that, and so can't participate in that. But if we're not meeting those off months, that may free up some time for them to be able to participate in that. Okay, any questions so far? Okay. And so there are no other changes until we get to page 3 under training, and this is lines 6 through 8. And actually it's 5.
Page 4?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Page 4.
It is page 4. Where am I? Yeah, page 4, I apologize. Yep. The original just said, members must complete training authorized by the Bennington Police Department Chief within 9 months of appointment to the CPARB. It now has an additional sentence that says, prior to Select Board review of the budget each year, the CPARB, working in conjunction with the Bennington Police Department, will provide a list of required trainings for members of CPARB. So we will provide this list that we feel members should have, okay? The next change is really, it was a typo that was taken out on line 12, okay? And then on lines 15 through 25 is that those paragraphs that were moved that are now called further consideration. There is an addition on line 20 that says, unless changed through the Town of Bennington Charter, the CPARB does not have the power or authority to investigate, review, or otherwise participate in matters involving specific police personnel or specific police-related incidents. The rest of that remains the same. Any questions on that? We did want to acknowledge that that is in process.
That's part that we were talking about earlier that you helped me with.
Yeah, that was...
That's been changed, though. It wasn't, yeah, it was a lot more detailed last month.
Yeah. Any questions?
So would we be responsible for those investigations then?
No. This is unless it changes in the charter. That's the only way we would be responsible for an investigation.
And is there a chance that might happen?
Well, the town has to vote on it in March, and then it goes to the legislature, and the legislature votes on it, and then the governor has to approve of it. So your guess is as good as mine. If it could go through, I mean, it's very possible that it go through all those steps. My understanding is that this is an oversight function, and that's not always been looked at with acceptance, that's what volunteer boards like ours should be doing, that it should be that, yeah. Okay, that's my understanding. So your guess is as good as mine.
But that puts liability on us then?
If it's passed in the charter, yeah. Yeah, then yeah.
Well, I think, Jean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that what the Charter Review Committee recommended was oversight. But I don't think that what the Select Board is looking at putting into the charter wording that would be on the ballot is oversight. It has more to do with review and the ability to see. Right now, we do not have the ability to watch body camera video, anything like that. Everything is anonymized. If that were to go through, that would change, but it would still be an advisory and review. We are not oversight investigative. That's always been in our resolution. That is a big misconception out in the community. I will tell you that based on emails that I get. We are not in that capacity, and that is not the intention of the Select Board. And it also was not the intention, and again, correct me, it was not the intention of what the Charter Review Committee was supposed to look at. They were looking at autonomy, meaning a little bit more independent, not authority, which is what it came back with. So Monday night, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. Even if that passed, I don't think the legislature would support it. I would be shocked if they did.
Yep.
So you don't think the board would pass that?
The legislature?
The legislature I'm talking about.
Doesn't the board have to?
There's, as Kelly just said, or Kate just said, there's multiple steps.
Yeah, but what's the first step?
the vote.
So the first.
Then it goes to the legislature, then it goes to the governor.
Yeah, the very first step is the select board has to determine the wording that's going to be warned on the ballot.
That's the first step.
That has not, as far as I know, has not happened yet. That's what the discussion Monday night at the early select board meeting, 5:30, I think, is about. So once the select board puts the wording on and it goes to the ballot, if the Bennington voters approve it, it then has to go to both houses in the legislature, the House and the Senate, and get approved. And whatever tweaks and it gets approved, and if it makes it through that, then it has to go to Governor Scott for Governor Scott's signature. So there's a lot of steps that changes have to go through. And right now, nothing has been defined, but from what we've been told, the wording is going to continue on the advisory and review portion and not on oversight. But we won't know until it comes out.
Right.
So we should be there on Monday.
I would think. I know Kate and I are going to be there. We're supposed to be on the agenda to talk about the resolution.
Yeah, we're doing a presentation. Kelly and I are doing a presentation on the resolution. Whatever we decide tonight. Now, we have to vote on this, obviously. But if these changes are approved by us, then we take this to the select board and we'll do a presentation. And we'll lay out in broad strokes how the original back in '22 is different than what we're proposing and what's been changed, rather than to go through each iteration, which would make us all crazy.
And you only have a half an hour. Meeting starts at 6.
Yeah,
So.
and then we'll point out things that are exactly the same in terms of use of language or items. And then they'll ask questions and, we'll go from there.
And it may get extended to another meeting because they'll probably want to review it and maybe it'll get approved Monday.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, they have to print the ballot, so.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm talking the resolution versus,
the resolution,
the
yes,
resolution
yes.
is different than the ballot part has to be, because that's timed and it has to be out in so many days in advance, Yeah.
So we would make a resolution to vote on presenting this to the select board.
Yeah.
As modified.
Yeah,
That's what we're looking at tonight.
Yeah. So if you approve these changes or you want other things changed, that's what we decide tonight.
Okay.
And then whatever we decide, then this is what we take to the select board on Monday.
So I'll make the motion, but I didn't know if there was more discussion to be had.
Do we have any other discussion from the board on the resolution? Questions?
I make a motion.
One
Sorry,
second.
go ahead.
Come on up.
Leslie Addison, again, North Bennington. I was confused at that board meeting with the answer that I think it was Jeannie who gave me. So I wanted to clarify my question. I love policy. I love reading it. Because where there's ambiguity or a decision made, that's where people in town will say or could say there's preferential treatment, somebody knows somebody. So that's why clarity or ambiguity is, something that you want to look at. So my question had to do with the section, and again, this is minor in the scope of everything they're doing. It's more just, a policy and protocol question. So the lines that had something to do with the selection of or the composition of the committee will generally follow the same protocols that town committees, select board, and there's a couple lines under considerations. If you could find that, Kathleen.
Sure, I have it right here. So it says, further considerations, the CPARB will be governed by the same general requirements as other town boards and commissions regarding appointments, conduct, term requirement, open meeting law, and open records law.
So my question was, when it says it will follow the same general requirements, are the requirements all the same for all of those examples of committees, select board? I mean, open meeting law is going to be consistent, I get that. But if one committee says, well, you have to be a town resident, but you could be appointed, or this one says, no, you must be, you must be this, that's where it generally follows is to me, ambiguous. So I didn't know whether there's consistency on all of those things, because somebody would say, well, they're on the committee because they're close with so-and-so. Now, not that that is a big deal, maybe it's not, but it just seemed unclear. So that's what I was trying to say, and Jeannie answered it, not Eugene, and she said, well, it kind of like, well, it was kind of like, don't worry about it, it's all the same, or something. I didn't understand. So that's why I wanted to restate my question here, because if it's clear to you and I'm the only one, then, it doesn't matter. So that's what I was raising.
Well, I think, I really don't know. I'm going to be honest with you. This is my first board that I've ever been on. And when I started, we were given a select board liaison and a copy of Robert's Rules of Orders. So I think, listening to some of the conversations that have gone over the last few months, it would be a good opportunity next year when boards come around for the select board to have a more formal orientation process for all boards, and then you'll know that generally it's consistent. I don't know if it's the same. I know we're recorded. I don't know if all the other boards are. I know we're independent with our documentation and doing our minutes. I don't know, not all the other boards are. Some are, some aren't. But I believe everybody has to follow the same open meeting laws and postings and, the ethics. That's pretty much statewide, so I would think that would be relatively consistent, but that's a new policy coming out.
And I think you had clarified what your requirements were as far as putting an application beyond your, your committee, so that helped. But that's what I was trying to say.
I think there may be some differences in term limits and those sorts of details from board to board. That's the part that I don't know if it's consistent. I don't necessarily, I don't know off the top of my head. I also don't know if that sort of stuff matters that much. Yeah. Maybe some people think it does. I guess I haven't really thought about it, whether it really is a huge issue. And when they say general requirements, I understand I don't like ambiguity either. I like clarity. It's not going to get changed today because it's, yeah.
Yeah, I read it as just, there are general requirements and then there's specific that are specific to each board. So this is, the general requirements are the same.
Yes.
And then the specific ones might be different, like.
That would have been a great sentence to add, but it's too late now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Something about general requirements, the specificities for each board may differ slightly, or something like that would have been great.
But, all right, I'll make a motion, we vote to present this to the select board, this resolution.
Can I get a second?
No, Scott. Oh, Scott.
As amended.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor of sending this version of our resolution suggestions to the select board, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. So this will be presented on Monday. And this is always a work in progress and can be changed. All right. So thank you, everyone. For that. Next up, we have the Public Safety Forum discussion. So our Public Safety Education Forum is going to be Wednesday, February 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Mount Anthony Union High School auditorium. It will be covered live by CAT TV. We will have childcare. Thank you, Vicki, for working with the Y on that. There will not be a cost of childcare to participants or attendees, so please take advantage of that. And so far, we have Chief Doucette, we have Vermont State Police Lieutenant Steve Coote, we have Erica Marthage, or possibly a designee from the State's Attorney's Office. We have a psychiatrist, Alia Reeve from UCS, and we have Stu Hurd. So we're still working on judiciary. Not sure if that's going to work out. And we are working on getting some additional communications out. So any questions or comments on that?
Is it from 6 to 8?
It's about 6 to 8, yes.
Okay.
It'll start at 6, and we hope to end about 8.
Thank you.
But if people have questions, it may go a little longer. I don't think we have a firm cutoff. What? Okay.
I'm just curious, I think I know the answer, but it'd be better if you said it. What's the format? Is it going to be like education? I know you're taking questions from the public, but what are you envisioning? It's just so people know.
Well, we're envisioning that each of the participants on the panel will introduce their agencies and their role in the agencies. And then we're looking to talk about community education, crime, some prevention techniques. I don't want to steal all the thunder from some of our board, our forum representatives, but violent crime is down. So we want to talk about that. We also want to talk about vigilantism that's happening out in the community, and the dangers of that. See something, say something, and
I was just going to say, we had 4 areas that we wanted participants to cover that we talked about last month. Did you want me to?
Yeah, can you go through those?
Did you want me to go over those again?
It's not for me.
No, it's for them. Did you want me to go over, would you like me to go over the 4 areas? So, because we talked about this last month, but, so one was to provide an overview of the factors that increase community-level violence and prevention strategies for that in Vermont. And the second one was a discussion about the current violent crime rate in Vermont and Bennington, so that members of the panel could inform the public about how it's gone down and what they each see as the reason for that. So then that's connected, obviously, to the first item. And then discussion of why offenders of serious crime are often released without any jail or prison time. Just so we have an understanding of what the law requires and how sometimes federal law comes into play. And it's got nothing to do with what's happening here in Bennington. It's the feds have, in a sense, come in. So we're trying to help folks understand that kind of a process. And then discussion of the many risks that occur when citizens are involved in criminal apprehension, like vigilantism, that poses a risk to the public, the police, and the individuals themselves. So we all have a better understanding of the role we play in public safety and the role we don't play in public safety in terms of that. So those are yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comment. I think it was several meetings ago, somebody was talking about how many people don't understand the role of this board, and I don't know if there's time or if it's appropriate, but maybe we should think about taking a few minutes and just educate people on the role of the CPARB board for the community members who are there.
Sure, it's a good
point.
Okay.
And this came about actually from one of the select board listening sessions in November. There was a resident who spoke about crime and vigilantism and public safety, and after that, Kate and I had met with her, and this is where we're at, Public Safety Forum. So please speak up and let people know, because things can happen. Things can happen. Good things can happen. So.
Just wondering if any of you in the audience have questions or comments or thoughts about that, suggestions about that. Okay, thank you.
February 26th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the high school. All right. So next on the agenda is upcoming agenda items. And I think, next month will be our meeting will be the day after our forum. It'll be the 27th. So we'll probably have some follow-up on that. And I'm sure we'll have a follow-up on the resolution. And if the resolution suggestions get passed, we will have our meeting in February, but after that, we'll talk about going every other month into the even months. And if we do that, it will keep us out of scheduling conflicts with the firemen's annual meeting and Thanksgiving. So it'll give us a more consistent schedule, which will make it easier with getting the room booked and CAT TV and give us time to do opening or listening sessions. So is there anything else that anyone else would like to add to the, for some possible outcome? Okay. All right, any announcements to make, anyone? The only announcement I have is our Public Safety Education Forum coming up. Kate and I will be presenting the resolution suggestions to the Select Board on the 27th, which is Monday. The Charter Review is also up on that. I understand there's a meeting on the Ben High Tuesday, the 28th. I encourage people to go to that. And if nobody else has anything else, so Vicki.
I probably should have said this in the beginning of the meeting. You might have seen me looking at my cell phone. I've gotten some coverage to get out of the house for a couple hours tonight. My husband is incredibly ill, so I wanted to make sure I had access. So I want to apologize if it looked not best for me to be sitting here looking at my phone.
Thank you, Vicki. So, anything else?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions. Our next meeting will be Thursday, February 27th, 2025, in the third floor of the firehouse at 130 River Street in Bennington in the multipurpose room. Thank you very much, and have a great night. Thank you.